This is a question I get asked all the time. How do you get so many abroad bookings? One of the main ways I actually get contacted for the abroad bookings is YouTube. I got a job in Sardinia recently through Instagram, and also then she randomly saw my laptop as well with my branding on. She was like, hey, she actually admitted to me, this a Russian woman who lives in Italy, that she screenshot all of the stuff from my website and emailed an Italian agency and asked them if they could recreate all of my acts. And then they were more expensive than me flying me over to Italy. So I was like, oh, you're very honest telling me that. But yeah, so the main thing with abroad bookings is, if you think about it, you're going to spend an extended amount of time with those performers. So just be a pleasure to be around. You know, if the client asks you to come for a drink, even if you think he's an arsehole and you don't drink, just go and have one drink and just be polite. You know, just be nice to be around. Make sure you take the correct items. You should do this for all jobs, but for abroad jobs, it's extremely important because you can't just nip home. You might be somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and if you haven't brought, you know, one cable or a particular battery, there's not going to be B&Q around the corner, you know, depending on where you are. You might be lucky. But yeah, double, triple check. Also things like, you know, squishing everything you can into a giant suitcase that you think like, oh, it probably won't get through, but it'll be fine. And you've like accidentally packed some fire equipment in your hand luggage or, you know, your sharp items. Just be intelligent and follow all of the airport rules. Be helpful, especially with carrying bags. So as an agent, I always turn up to the airport, and obviously I normally have all of the bags, and I have like 2 or 3 trolleys. And it is surprising the number of people just got their little backpack and they're just walking alongside me, pushing said giant trolley of bags. You know, you don't have to push it for me, I don't expect that, but like, just be like, oh, do you need a hand? Or, you know, is there anything I can do? Just like, be nice, as me and Tor would say.
Do you ever have any, I mean, I see lots of posts of people asking this about fire stuff and airlines. What would you, if you hired me for an international gig and I get to the other side of the airport and the airport says, sorry, we detained your bag with all your fire equipment in because it was loads of fire equipment. Obviously I would ring you and I'd let you know, like, if that's all I can do really, isn't it? It's just ring you and say, my bag's been detained, I can't do anything, all my equipment's in it. And
yeah, sometimes things like that happen, it's out of your control. However, you know, there are things that you should do to prevent that from happening, like wrapping your fire equipment in cling film and then wrapping it in another bag and then gaffer taping it, making sure that it's in a hard, I always pack my fire equipment in a hard case. And just make sure that, you know, you don't have any residues of anything else. You know, don't fly with fuel, don't fly with pyros.
Yeah,
like,
it's illegal.
Yeah, I know that. I've had performers turn up, be like, oh, I don't need any paraffin, I've got my own lighter fluid. You've put, no, don't do that. Yes.
Never having done an international gig, well, with regards to the pyros and the fuel, is that something the agency organises at the other country, or is that something you absorb once you're over there?
So it depends on the gig. If you're through an agent, it's not your responsibility, the agent sorts it out. However, I have had many fire gigs, and even fire gigs I've previously done before. And in India, one of my first ones, they gave me water because they thought I wanted something to put out fire. And I got given this giant jug. And I opened it, I was like, it's clear. I was like, it doesn't smell like anything. And my husband just put his finger in and went, yeah, it's water. And I was like, okay, cool. Then they gave me kerosene. I don't know if anyone's ever performed with kerosene. It's really not very good for you. So I'd say, you know, it is hard. It is hard when you do abroad jobs. In the French Alps, I got given barbecue lighter gel.
Gel?
Yeah, gel.
I saw someone try fiery with that once. I was like, yeah, we went to like a hardware shop and I tried to advise her against it. So it was like Monte Carlo, and I tried to advise her against it so many times. She was like, no, it's fine, my boyfriend's French, he says that this might set on fire. I was like, yeah, it's set on fire. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea to put into your face.
If the client has to, you've got to then they have to supply completely from horrible fuel.
It's not your fault and you don't have to perform. So, like for me, I get full payment up front. So I have the confidence if I get there and they've provided the incorrect stuff, I'm like, well, you've already paid me. And they will then obviously try and find the right fuel. But no matter how professional the agent is, so I got flown to Nigeria through another agency who are very professional, and I got there and they're so relaxed there. It was like 5 minutes before a show and I was like, you know how I keep asking for fuel? Kind of like you did now. And he hadn't got it. And he said, oh, can you just go to a supermarket, like in Nigeria? Just go to a supermarket. And I was like, no. I don't know. So I ended up having to, because they didn't understand what it was, and they booked 5 performers. I had to go with a guy and go around to like 4 or 5 supermarkets. Didn't find any, and then went back to the hotel and saw they had oil lamps. And I was like, can I have this fuel from the oil lamps? But it is hard. I'm not going to lie, it is hard. So it depends. If you've had an agent drive props over, ask them to drive fuel over. I always now, everyone knows what Zippo lighter fluid is. It's obviously burns a lot hotter, and it's in really small containers, but you pretty much can get it anywhere in the world. So if you're in doubt, ask for that, ask for a lot, because it's pretty tiny. But yeah, it is difficult, but it's not your fault. And make sure that's like in your contract. Make sure you apply. If it's not written, just say you apply saying you will be providing the fuel. You can also pay to post pyros to where you're going, but again, there's still rules with posting and stuff like that.
So, yeah, so the agent can also sort out the pyro provided it's in your contract.
I always do, through my agency. However, I can't speak for anybody else. But I have also booked a 5 performer that pulled out fuel and pyros out of their suitcase. And I was like, I was on the same plane as you. So yeah. And they were experienced 5 performer. It absolutely baffles me, but people do it. So, yeah. What do you find, Elliot? Have you done many abroad jobs, fire jobs? Yeah.
Yeah, just pack it all down, wipe it all down with a wet rag so that there's no soot or any residue on your props. Wrap it with cling film, duct tape, all the usual stuff.
Cling film, then a plastic bag, then duct tape.
Yeah.
It's really good actually.
And generally make sure
Yeah.
it's not holes.
Really
Always in the holes, every time.
Oh yeah. Walking through EasyJet.
Another good thing for like things with ropes, like airtight Tupperware box.
Yeah.
Great, and then that's less wasted plastic on the other end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You can, instead of using cling film, you can just make yourself some plastic wraps with like Velcro that you can make. Yeah.
What I've seen is if you say you use staffs or whatever, you can get a Tupperware box, drill a hole into it that's the same diameter as the tube, pop it inside, clip the box shut, then tape around the
Air holes. Yeah.
and then it's kind of like.
So it's normally going to be a sniffer dog or something that smells the
Yeah.
fuel. And especially maybe you've wrapped it and it's great and it got to India or wherever you're going, and then they give you terrible fuel and it absolutely reeks and you might not get your bag back. I have more problems with batteries now. Since the Samsung phone exploded, I have to travel with all of my LED dance costume batteries in my hand luggage, and I always want to have a spare one. So if I have 10 dancers, I have 20 batteries, and I've been stopped so many times. So now I have to hand them out to all the performers and give them 2 batteries each, because they just don't understand, obviously, why my whole hand luggage is just batteries. I just like to be prepared. But yeah, they don't understand. So also as well, if you're traveling abroad and you have equipment in the hold and you are like a bit worried about it, have some performing pictures that are already downloaded on your phone so you can show people what you're doing. Because a lot of the time when you go to like random countries, they think you're going to like sell stuff. Like I had loads of shoes and the same identical costume because I'm supplying stuff, and they were like, are you going to sell these? And I was like, no. America is particularly difficult. America is very difficult, plus you have to have visas and all the other things. I'm a bit interested to see what's going to happen with Brexit. Only because, yeah, I've already received as a company, I'm sure you have, Josh, I have to provide a statement of all of the income I've had for said years in Europe, and even that's going to be difficult. So going forward, I don't really know how that's going to work. But again, just you're going into the most highly secure place on earth, is an airport. So just abide by all the rules and yeah, just wrap everything. Yeah, you're there to work. So obviously everyone likes vacation. Everyone likes to be by the beach. But you need to make sure that your priority is the job. Because sometimes you will get amazing abroad jobs where, you know, they're like, oh, just take the day off and go out to dinner and do what you want. And then you've got other abroad jobs who are really annoying and you've arrived at like 2 a.m. and they're like, so we're going to have a briefing at 8. And you're thinking, why 8 a.m? We're not performing till 10 p.m. But they're probably just assholes. But you have to do it. You have to just, you're there to work. And unfortunately, that's what you have to do and prioritize. And the 3 only ever people I've fired from my company are all over abroad jobs and their behaviour on abroad jobs. So for me, if you cancel me, for example, on an abroad job, the client will know because they've booked a flight for you. If you behave really badly on an abroad job, like, you know, probably the only English person there, they know who you are. So not depending on where you are. Apparently I'm Norwegian, Russian, German, everything but English when I go abroad. Drinking, similar to like you're there to work, just, you know, depending on the agent and depending on the client. So you can ask, you could be like, you know, is it all right if I have a drink? Most of the time it's fine, you know, moderation. Just don't be like projectile vomiting, sleeping through rehearsals, you know, being a big diva. Unaccounted expenses. If you have an organised agent who has sent you a very clear confirmation, it should say what's included. You know, if they've been quite vague, like all food included, and you've gone on and had yourself a lobster, you know, you're taking the piss. So even if you did have that amount, just don't do it, and don't also do what our performer did, which I'm still confused how they thought it was okay. So I had said performer who owned his own robot. I didn't know it was his robot and I hired it through an agency. They flew him out to Monaco through me for a very good client of mine, which I've now had no longer work with. Don't think it's to do with that, just do something else. And anyway, he thought it was okay on the job to bring his invoice printed off and give it to the client, and then the client paid him. So when I then said, this was back in the day before I got full payment up front, I was like, oh, you know, sort of been replying to my invoices. They were like, oh, it's because we've already paid the performer. I was like, how? So he gave me the invoice. So not only did he cut his agent out, he cut me out as well. And then he then had the audacity to send me loads of extra expenses, which I said I wouldn't cover, and asked me to pay him. And I was like, no, I'm not going to pay you for your go-karting day. So yeah, just keep a receipt. Don't take the piss. If you do a personal outing on an abroad job, you'll be paying for it yourself. Sometimes you have nice clients, but you have to check before just casually adding it to your invoice, or booking VIP car parking that cost 150 quid rather than I can't bother to take a transfer bus because Gemma says she's just going to cover parking. You know, like little things like that. Don't be a diva. Yes, don't be a diva. So I've got so many examples of divas and I won't bore you with them. But yeah, just behave nicely, be nice. Don't, like for example, I was just saying to Josh on a very big job and I was running around like a lunatic. One of the singers interrupted a conversation I was having to ask me for a peppermint tea. I was like, one, I'm not your waitress. I didn't say that. I said, no, I can't give you that. But I wanted to say, like, are you actually joking? One, go and get it yourself. Two, we're in a very hot country. Why do you want to drink tea? And three, I'm not going to go get it for you. But it's little things like that. If they're constantly doing it, constantly asking you questions, can't think for themselves, like, you're just not going to book them for another abroad job.